Hello and welcome to the Lenko show, first one of the new year. This is episode 11. So happy new year to you all. I hope you're on to a fantastic, wonderful start after having a brilliant little Christmas, albeit in your own house by yourself, sat under the stairs, or maybe that was just me. I am joined again today by Chris, and I'm privileged and honored to be in his presence. Today, we're going to be talking to you about goal setting, and this is something that Chris is actually very astute and skilled at. He's very good at delving into people's minds and pulling things out. So we're gonna have a little chat, discuss what we know about goal setting, and come up with some solutions, suggestions, exercises, if you will, and practices for you to implement to have a very, very successful 2021, or at least hopefully it can be better than last year. I mean, let's be honest, that's not hard. It's a fairly low bar, but we're all about moving forwards. That's what we want. So we're going to persist, we're going to push on, and we're going to progress. So, Chris, welcome to the show. How are you doing, bro?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Happy to be here again.
Absolutely. Damn right. So,
you know what? I'd actually just to cut you off a second. So, just based on the last thing you said about 2020 not being a great year. So, Dean Flynn, one of our trainers at Leyland, Gym at Session Leyland, he actually summed it up perfectly. So for everyone, obviously it's New Year's Eve right now, but you'll be watching this on New Year's Day. They've just announced that we're going into tier 4.
Which is basically a lockdown, isn't it? Let's just call it what it is. Let's call a turd and a spade. This is just another lockdown. That's exactly what we're experiencing.
So obviously the circumstances aren't ideal. In fact, if anything, they're tremendously inadequate for us. However, Dean Flynn, shout out to you, he explained it as, particularly for me and you, Alex, like with the jobs that we have, our role is to help people achieve their goals. Okay, so I mean, this podcast today is perfectly tailored towards this, but our role is to help people achieve their goals, right? Our role isn't to train people in a gym. That's not what we do. That's part of what we do, but that's just part of it. And the essence of what Dean was saying is, just because we're not in gyms right now, and just because we're going back into another lockdown, it doesn't mean that people can't still achieve their goals. They can. It is a lot harder, don't get me wrong, and it's not an ideal situation for everyone, but it's just another obstacle in the path. We just have to move the obstacles out of the way, the ones that we have control over, and carry on moving forward. And I love that.
Do you know what? I'm gonna come back at you with a quote, and I love this. It's from a book I've read. I have read a lot over the last few months, mainly thanks to lockdown. But
I didn't actually know that you could read.
Wow. Right. Okay. Fair enough. Anyway, so I have been reading a lot, contrary to whatever you may think. And one of the books I've read recently is Grit by Angela Duckworth. Massively recommend that. Download it on Audible if you've got it. Make sure you have a read. It's well worth it. But a quote here from a chap called William James, all about living to our potential. And I think this kind of fits in with our philosophy, what we believe, and what you've just said there about circumstances. Obviously, gyms not being open unless you're in a tier 3 area. But anyway, here we go. So to begin the quote, compared with what we ought to be, we are only half awake. Our fires are damped, our drafts are checked. We are making use on only a small part of our possible mental and physical resources. We are literally, well, that's the end of the quote, by the way. But we are only making use of a fraction of what we can compared to what we've got and what we're capable of. We're only making use of a fraction of it. So the aim of today's podcast, the aim of today's show, is to dig into that a little bit more and squeeze the juice, get as much juice out of as we can out of you.
Me,
if you want.
So, the audience.
So what I think I'd like to begin with is going into sort of the hierarchies of the goal So we've all got loads of little things going on in life, but every positive intention we have, I think, is linked to what we define as our purpose. It's the ultimate. Imagine it as a pyramid. It is the top of the pyramid. It's the star on top of your Christmas tree, if you want another analogy for it. But that's the pinnacle. That's what we're aiming for. And every goal is a search for a feeling. And that's the ultimate feeling. So what are the little things that can contribute or help us feel a certain way? You know, one of the questions that I always ask when setting goals with someone is, how will you feel when you've achieved it? Because in reality, if you can visualize your goal, you can actually create that feeling there and then. If you do the visualization right and powerfully enough, you've already created the feeling, and then you feed off that and use it to pull you forward. So when you've set compelling goals and visualized and created a compelling future for yourself, it should pull you. It should pull you forward. You shouldn't need motivating. You shouldn't need a kick up the arse. You shouldn't need a boot in the backside from a coach, a mentor, a friend, or whatever. You should feel like you're being pulled and dragged towards it. And if you haven't got that feeling, if you haven't got that kind of retching in your gut that you are being dragged and you are being compelled to do things, I would simply suggest the first thing is go back, revisit the goal, and create that feeling, create that emotion, visualize it, spend time working on it, and take a look at it. What's your take on that? What do you think, Chris?
I agree. I think one of the ways that I explain this to my guys is, like, obviously, as you said, everything has like the greater purpose, but we don't really acknowledge it. But one of the ways that we can simplify it is to think of it like we don't get out of bed specifically to get out of bed. That's not the reason we got out of bed. Like, if you're thinking of all the mundane tasks that we do, like washing the dishes, I know you're a big fan of that, Alex, things like that, what is the actual purpose behind those? What's the over encompassing reason that we do the little tiny things? What's it for? What you and to add to that as well, what you'll find is a lot of them will be unhelpful things that you do to feel or to achieve something very specific. So you can start trading those out and find the things that are useful towards you, or productive or proactive things that you can engage in that will help push you towards the exact same things.
And when we're talking about linking emotion to the goal, what do you find as being some of the main emotions that people come out with that kind of inspire them and drive them forwards and compel them to act?
Well, I vividly remember He Who Shall Not Be Named. We had a conversation one time, and he was teaching me. He wasn't specifically teaching me, but he imparted wisdom, and he was saying that pain is a far greater initial driver than pleasure. So most people initially will be trying to drive away from pain, so something that they don't want to feel, or something that they currently feel that they don't want to feel, and then moving forward from there. Obviously, pleasure is the long-term one, but the main ones I think for people are to feel confident in who they are, like in one way or another. Is to feel confident or to have a level of freedom. I think all of the things kind of come under those two brackets, or at least the vast majority that I've experienced from other people come under those two. What do you think?
I think pain is the initial driver, and what I will do is I'm going to let everyone that's listening to this, because I appreciate you so much and I love you, to hold you in such a high regard as one of our valuable listeners, is I'm going to let you on a little secret. So when we're goal setting as a coach, what we will try and do, what we will do, is get you to recognize, just through questioning and like not whether you want to call it manipulation, but get you to recognize.
It is manipulation. If we're calling shits and spades, it is manipulation.
It's a very fair comment. It's a very fair comment. So what we're going to try and do is manipulate you into understanding your current situation in the most emotional way possible so that you can experience it. So if you were to visualize this and you think, oh, everything's a bit shit, the question that I would then ask is, how shit is it? What about it is so terrible? What is it that you're experiencing? And be as descriptive as you possibly can. So just as a rough example off the top of my head, if, for instance, you were unfit, you're unhealthy, you want to lose a bit of weight, you've had a bit of a, a hefty Christmas with plenty of surplus calories, okay, what causes you to recognize, first and foremost, that you want to lose weight? What's the moment that you notice it? So think about that. Is it, when you're walking up the stairs, do you get out of breath? Do you start experiencing a higher heart rate, maybe palpitations, maybe a bit of a sweat, maybe shortness of breath? Is it you look at yourself in the mirror and you feel a little bit disgusted with what you're seeing? Because if that is the case, recognize it. Think about that for a second. Visualize it. See yourself there in the moment and experience that. And that's how we create that level of pain, because all too often we're numb to it. We don't recognize it often enough because it occurs so frequently. We don't fully embrace it and pay attention to it. And that's where, I think I've very often heard the question of, how does someone get so big? And it's, you simply don't recognize it. You don't know it when you're doing it. You obviously, you're overeating and you're a bit overweight, but you don't realize how bad it is affecting you. So what we will do is get you to recognize how much it is affecting you. What role is it playing in your day-to-day life? If you are sacrificing yourself to try and help other people, is it actually helping other people? By you not taking care of yourself, are you honestly doing your best for other people? And by that, I mean, if you're not sleeping, you're not training, you're not eating well, your energy levels are poor, you're in a high amount of pain, you're unable to move. Let's say you've got a young child. Well, how is all of that useful to being a good parent? It doesn't work like that. You have to take care of yourself to be able to give the best version of you to other people, don't you? So we will create as much friction as we can, as much pain as we can. We'll build it up, build it up, build it up, or you'll build it up. Sorry, we won't do it. We don't kind of pour petrol on the fire. We just kind of give you the can of petrol and the lighter, and then like playtime, off you go. You make the most of your own situation in that sense, don't you? So we'll kind of give you those toys and say, right, go nuts, go play. And then once you've done that, we'll then give you the tools and the equipment to go, well, what's the alternative? Describe it to me. What is it you want? What's a compelling future? What's the overall feeling you want to have then? And it's a game of contrast. So you create the pain all the way up to like maximize the volume on the pain. If we use it as a dial, we try and crank it up all the way to 100, full blast, as high as it will go. And then it's a game of, right, okay, well, what's the compelling future on the other side? We'll turn the volume up, crank it up on there, bang that up to 100, and then it's playtime, because you've got two massively different futures that if you extrapolated them over the course of 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, it's worlds apart.
Yeah, I think we actually encountered this last weekend. A lot of people who go into like specific negative habits, like things like when you said about gaining weight, stuff like that, a lot of that develops from an inability to deal with problems that's going on with such a person's life. And a lot of the inability to deal with the problems comes from refusing to pay attention to them, because it's something that either scares you or frightens you, or you're not sure you can actually deal with. People just switch off from it. So like when it comes to like gaining weight and things like that, you kind of know it's there, but you'll deliberately try and ignore it.
Yeah.
Which is obviously inevitably what would end up in becoming like an eating disorder or something like that. But that again just enhances kind of your point there. That's why we're getting you to visit that emotion and kind of like, to be honest, we leave you dwelling in it just for a little bit. Not because we enjoy it. Sometimes we enjoy it, but because it's important. Because a lot of people deliberately don't pay attention to it. So that's our role. Now is your chance to pay attention to it. And the more you feel it, the more powerful it is, the more necessary it is to change and do something about it.
Yeah. What we want you to do is wallow in your own mess. We want you to fill your nappy, sit in it for a while, think about what you've done, and then begin the cleanup process. That's hopefully that helps you with a little bit of creativity and visualizing that then.
Yeah, I think just to mention, like, a lot of people think that we're deliberately trying to make people cry. It's not that we're trying to make people cry. It's that if you, and you'll have had this, Alex, you'll have sat opposite someone doing like goal setting or coaching, something like that, and it's something that's actually very, very important to someone, and you can see that it is, but there's the derive of any of emotion, and it's like, are you genuinely thinking about this? Are you genuinely concerned about this going in your life? Or are you just switched off from it? Because if they're switched off from it, there's very little that you can do until a person actually faces the object in front of them. There's very little they can do to face it, to actually overcome it.
Yep. So that's where I kind of wanted to go with this next, which is, so you need to link emotion to the goal. And by linking emotion to the goal, whether that means that you cry, you have a little bit of a moment to yourself, like, it doesn't need to result in a breakdown, not by any stretch of the imagination, but it should maybe cause a little bit of a change in your breathing pattern, maybe a moment of recognition, a bit of an epiphany, a bit like Homer Simpson getting slapped in the face by the epiphany. Something like that, where you have that moment of realization that you can then begin to act on it. And you do need to have that emotion. This is where emotions do serve a purpose. They are simply there to get you to recognize something, whether it's for good or for bad, or for positive change, for negative, for changing something. They are there to serve a purpose, to get us to do something, to get us to act, to get us to move. Emotion, that's what it's for. So what we then need to do is then take the logical steps of go, right, okay, well, I understand I've soiled myself. I'm sat here in my own filth, looking like a mess, and I'm not happy about it. I'm a bit emotional about it. I'm having a bit of a weep and a sob to myself. I've got to try and get out of this mess. Okay. And the positive emotion, in contrast, might not necessarily come from us being selfish. Very rarely does it actually work that way. When we have a purposeful goal and a fulfilling, or a feeling of fulfillment, it tends to surround somebody else. Does that make sense? Do you know where I'm going with this, Chris? So
A little bit.
Very often that higher purpose is a bit more spiritually connected with someone else, whether it's another person, family member, friend, relative, a group, society, community, nationally, or globally, as far as you want to go. But very often it surrounds some other person. So it involves us having to be selfish, but understanding that us taking those actions for our own benefit, for our benefit, are actually useful for somebody else. So going back to the parent analogy, if you want to be the best parent possible for your child, and you want the best future possible for your child, maybe that comes from you leading by example in your own life, being fit, being healthy, being physically and mentally switched on, dialed in, taking care of yourself, teaching the child that that's how it's done. Like, you can still take care of yourself, have a great life, and look after everyone around you, and show up at your best.
Yeah, very profound. I agree.
So let's go into your 5 exercises to being, or 5 exercises to goal setting.
Okay, so this stuff is kind of, because of the time of year it is, obviously New Year's Day for you guys. Obviously, we're looking at some stuff for New Year's resolutions and things like that, and we found that I think it's 7 to 8% of people. That's what the statistics say. I couldn't actually find the study, but 7 to 8% of people succeed on achieving their New Year's resolutions. 7 to 8, and I think I also saw a figure. This is a ballpark figure. I don't know for certain, but it said something like 8% of people have already given up come the end of January, which makes sense because in the context of time, 4 weeks is, if you're not seeing any results,
Yeah.
I would imagine that most people would have given up by then.
Yeah.
But
if it hasn't worked in the first month, why carry on for the next 11?
Yeah, exactly. So we were going to look into why people kind of don't continue or they don't achieve their goals, but we thought that'd be useless. We're better off telling you how you can actually enhance your chances of success. So I'm just going to recite this out for you. So Dr. Gail Matthews of Dominican University and Dr. Stephen Krauss from Harvard conducted research on how to increase your chances of achieving a goal. They recruited 267 participants from a variety of businesses and organizations and asked them to set business-related goals for themselves for an upcoming 4-week period. So they did some form of goal setting. There was 267 of them, and it was over 4 weeks where they were setting goals. So participants were randomly assigned to one of 5 groups, and each group was instructed to use one or more of the following activities. Number 1, which is the most basic group, was think about your goals. Number 2 was write down your goals. Number 3 was make a list of actions that you commit to, taking you forward towards your goals. Number 4 was sending a list of goals and actions toward a supportive friend, supportive being keyword. Number 5 being
Which very often might not actually be your mother. Not very supportive sometimes. Oh, well, why do you want to do that for? That's normally what I get.
Yeah, so listen, you got to be very careful with this because we've done this before. We've had accountability partners in like education sessions and stuff that we've done before. What you might find is the people that actually like you think really care about you, they'll let you off with some stuff. So you might say, "Oh, I've not done this, I've not done that," and they go, "Right, okay, well, that's fine. What about this? Let's move on to this." Sometimes you need the right person to go, "Oh, hang on a minute. This is a really simple activity. This is a really simple task. Why haven't you completed this? What's gone on there?" It might be that was the most important one that you need to do and you shat out of it. So you need to make sure you've got someone that you trust. By the way, definitely do not do this with your partner. Do not do this with your partner. It can turn into, I'm not saying this from experience, but it can turn into like judging and nagging, and also you might hide some stuff because you're worried about what they're going to think about you. So I'd recommend not doing it with a partner. Do it with a supportive mentor or friend or someone that you know like truly wants the best for you, not cares about the way you feel, truly wants the best for you. That's the big tip there. And number 5 was sending a weekly progress report of your results to the support friend or mentor. And the way the research went was group 1 only performed the first activity, which was thinking about their goals. Group 2 did exercise 1 and exercise 2, so they thought about the goals and wrote down the goals, so on and so forth, up to group 5 who did all 5 activities / techniques. So they thought about the goals, write down the goals, made a list of actions that they would commit to, send the list of goals and actions to friend, mentor, what have you, and then they were sending weekly progress reports and speaking to and basically having an accountability partner with that supportive friend where they would receive feedback, etc. So those were the 5 tasks, and they actually found that the success rate for each goal increased with the number of activities that were being performed. So group 1 had a 43% success rate, which in my opinion is still quite high. I don't think general population would get a 43% success rate over a 4-week goal.
I think you said at the start, didn't you? It's around 7%, isn't it?
Yeah. So that would be more likely. And group 5 was actually, it was 76%. So doing just those 5 activities, you had a 76% chance of achieving your goal. Although I may have messed up the word in there, but much higher. So those 5 activities. So I'll read them out again. Thinking about your goals, which is number one. Writing down your goals, which I don't know where you stand on this, but I would say, Alex, is always essential. What do you reckon?
100%. You have more neural connections between your brain and your hand than you do between your brain and any other part of your body. So you need to write them down. By writing things down, but whether it's goals, learning in a classroom, things that you read in a book. I know I do that all the time anyway. I always write stuff down and take notes. It commits it to memory. It's much more likely to stick. It has to be done. It's not optional. And the other thing that I would say is, don't just write them down in a notebook and then shove it away where you're never going to see it. Write them down on, like, go and buy some little cue cards from a stationery shop, or write them down, get them tattooed on your hand, just anything where you are going to see it on a frequent basis. If you get the cue cards, keep them in your wallet. If you've got them written down, maybe put them on the fridge in your house. If you've got a list of stuff, if you've got a really bad habit of going into a particular cupboard and eating certain foods, bang something on the front of that cupboard that reminds you and triggers you, gets that little change in your thought pattern. Because all goal setting is breaking down previous patterns and neural connections that are hardwired into your brain and your nervous system, breaking those down and changing them. All you are doing is changing the electrical signal sent from one neuron to another in your brain. That's it. If we can do that and create some new ones that are more beneficial and more positive, easy. Big step to doing that, 100%, write it down. Create a little vision board for yourself as well if you want, whether it's through printing stuff off and pinning them on a board at home in an office where you frequently work. Have it as a screensaver on your laptop. Whatever's important to you, whatever your ultimate purpose is, whether it's being a dad, a mom, an athlete, it doesn't matter. Pin that as a reminder to your phone screensaver, laptop screensaver, anywhere. Be reminded of it every single day. One of the other quotes that I do love, which is, when it comes to athletic training, if you've got a goal or a purpose or something that you're working on, if it's important, you do it every day. See it every day, visualize it every day. Start your day with it, finish your day with it. Make it part of you. That's a fundamental way to do it.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think we spoke about this in the first podcast that we did together. We were saying about like setting yourself up to succeed. Like especially now, like a lot of people will put themselves in the most. I mean, we're already in a difficult position, but the hardest possible position to actually achieve the goal. If you're hanging around with people who care about you to the point where they're happy to just allow you to kind of be lazy with some stuff and let yourself off with some stuff, you're not going to drive as hard as you would if you were hanging around with people who let's say, and I think this is how I described it last time, your goal, habit, or action was their kind of like daily, mundane habit or action that they do all the time anyway, just as an everyday thing. Like you will eventually fit into fitting into their mold and fit into doing what they do naturally anyway. You don't want to be with people who are really, really struggling to go out and do it and very rarely do it. Like that would make no sense. Like you won't, if I said to you, what's the best chance of becoming a billionaire? Hang around with like loads of homeless people, no disrespect, or hang around with a load of billionaires. Which one would you do? Like that's obviously a very extreme example, but it's a no-brainer.
It actually comes to something else that I wrote down, which we were going to talk about, but we might as well talk about it now while we're on it, and then come back to the five exercises. But compliance is easy. Compliance and fitting in is part of human nature. It is so easy for us to elevate our standards when everybody else around us has the same high standards. And that's where I think, I think for me, like I see it in football a lot. I see it in football all the time. Like you'll have a team that are performing in the championship, and we call it second season syndrome, where the team that performs well in the championship, they get promoted, spend a year in the Premier League, they actually do all right. They've got really good positive habits, really good positive attitudes. and they're used to that winning feeling from the season before, from a successful season. And then all of a sudden that starts to drop a little bit, and all of a sudden mentality changes slightly, and you start doing things in a different way, maybe that you weren't doing before when you were successful, and you start falling out. You lose that sense of positivity, you lose that winning feeling, and standards might start to dip, standards might start to drop. And you've said it there perfectly. If you want to be a billionaire, or you want to make millions and millions of pounds, or you want to have, a better physique, you go and hang around with those people that portray that. Like, there's a reason that we go and train in the gym and not McDonald's. Just take a look around. Take a look. And I remember when I went to Tony Robbins, he asked a very simple question. He said, who here works out 5 times a week? And obviously everyone that does puts their arm up. So I've got 2 arms up because I do like 10 sessions. So I'm stood there, like loads of people have got their arm up, and he just says, look around. Do you believe them? And you look at everyone that's got their arms up and they're all in good shape. It's simple, like goal setting. And like I said, it's creating new patterns, habits, and behaviors. That's all it is. New patterns and new habits. There is a specific way to achieve anything. You want to get good at running? Get your trainers on. Go for a little jog. Go for a little one. Not a marathon, not on day one. That'll kill you. But go for a little one, like 2 minutes. Do 60 seconds, 30 seconds. One of the things to rehabilitate cardiac patients, one of the most effective methods, is to do interval walking. Even with a frame, walk a few paces, 5-10 paces, have a breath, catch your breath, then go again, do it again. You repeatedly do that, you are setting yourself up for success. If you come out and say, one of the reasons I think Couch to 5K is so useful is because it starts you with the baby steps. If you came out and said, right, post-Christmas, it's January now, I'm going to get into it, I'm going to get running, I'm going to do it, I'm going to absolutely smash it. And you go, day one, right, that's it, I'm off for a 5K, up a hill. What the fuck are you doing? When was the last time you ran 5K? Did you run 5K altogether last year? Like in terms of total distance covered? Probably not. If you didn't do that, don't go and run 5K on day one. Do you know? Don't set yourself up for failure. And if it's not going to be sustainable, don't do it. Start small, build up, build an enjoyment to it. Going out and running 400 meters on your first training session might be a little less arduous, maybe less beneficial in terms of calories burn, energy expenditure, but in terms of the relationship you build up with the exercise, you probably find it more enjoyable and less painful. And again, we talk about that pleasure-pain gap and relationship, that pleasure-pain continuum. If exercising is only ever horrendous, what's the likelihood of you going and doing it again? Probably nil. So set yourself up for success and, go and join a gym, go and join a class, go and be around people that do run all the time, go and be around people who do look after themselves, who do make good decisions about food. If you were wanting to improve your nutrition, well, don't go and sit down in McDonald's.
Yeah, very, very, very good advice. Solid.
It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science, is it?
Success leaves clues.
You want to be a brain surgeon? Go and hang around with a lot of brain surgeons. Maybe go and do a degree. You've got to do those specific things to fulfill that person, that persona that you're creating. So,
yeah, I think an advancement on that is, we were talking about this before as well, is the RAS, the reticular activating system. If you're rehearsing stuff and pushing it through into your subconscious, your brain's going to start finding it and looking for more of it anyway. You might do you want to explain what I actually mean by that, if in case anyone doesn't know what that is?
Yeah, so your reticular activating system it will take in things that are going to make it strong. So basically, if you have a particular goal and it's in the forefront of your mind all the time, like if I said to you now, wherever you are, if you're in the car, don't do this, but wherever you are, notice and pick out everything that's red. And you start looking for red. You see red everywhere, even if it's not quite red, even if it's like a slight shade of brown or burgundy or even purple, you're going to call it fucking red because you want it to be red. So think of that as your positivity. If everything that's red is positive, I'm asking you to look at all the positive things, taking all the things that could help you, could be a possibility to move forwards. You notice them. And while you're noticing all those positives and noticing all the reds, how many things did you see that were blue? How many? You probably thought, oh shit, I wasn't even thinking about blue. But then you start looking around for blue and you go, well, that's blue, that's blue. And they start racking up. So it will work either in your favor or it will work against you. And I think I have a quote on this as well. Where is it? The law of attraction is the belief that the universe creates and provides for you that which your thoughts are focused on. It's believed by many to be a universal law by which like always attracts like. The results of positive thoughts are always positive consequences. The same holds true for negative thoughts, always leading to bad outcomes. So take your pick. What is it you want? What is it you want to gain from it? If you want to see the positives, start looking.
Simple as that.
Simple as that. I think we got to rule number 2 or exercise number 2 on your five exercises.
Yeah, we got to 3. So 1 was think about your goals. 2 was write down your goals. Number 3 was make a list of actions that you commit to that will take you forward to your goals. Number 4.
Hold on. Let's dig into that one a little bit. So a list of actions.
Yep. So actually, I would. I think this is like when you showed us the goal hierarchy earlier, like the bottom things. So anyone who's one of our clients will have used the 90-day like goal planner thing where, and even if you don't, like the one thing that I do is write down like 3 goals for each day, and you can address them in the evening. It's kind of just like the same thing. You're looking at what the greater goal is, and then and you said this earlier about doing it like you should be doing something on it every day. I mean, and like if you want to get there faster, you absolutely should. Like it's like if I said, do you want to become, let's say, a really good footballer? Would you train once a week or would you train 5 times a week? Both might eventually get you there, but I'm betting my mortgage, my mum's mortgage, my dad's mortgage, everything that belongs to everyone else, that you will get there faster, more efficiently, doing 5 times a week.
You'd be more likely to get there.
Absolutely. With the hard work, obviously.
So just going into that list of actions a little bit more, when you've got your overall purpose and you've got your, you think about your goals, you've got your big goal that you're aiming for, that might be a long way off. Maybe it's in a big event that you're training for next year. Maybe it's
Eurovision.
Okay, Eurovision. Maybe it's something you're aiming for in 5 years or 10 years time. Because it's so far away, it's like if you've ever been on a walk and thought, right, well, we're going over there, and you think, it's a long way. And then you start walking, and eventually after about 20 minutes, you look up and you think, doesn't even look any closer. It's very hard to gauge that progress unless you've got the smaller steps, unless you've got those smaller tick boxes that you can say, yep, done that, and you can see yourself moving forward. You can't necessarily get that kind of addiction towards completing the goal and feeling like you're progressing. And people are happiest when they're making progress. So creating the list of actions from the big goal into smaller, either monthly targets, weekly targets, and daily targets, by completing those list of actions, allows you to actually feel like you're making progress. So you get the feeling that you are contributing towards your goal, which means you are more likely to maintain those habits long term anyway. And it changes your focus. Looking at the big goal can very often be daunting, distracting, overwhelming, scary. Can be a bit scary. Don't shit
I would
yourself.
also say to that as well, think of it like, let's say you achieve the goal, whatever it may be, and then someone took it away from you and you were left with nothing. Have you got the necessary skills and blueprint to achieve that goal again if you had to? If you've set down daily disciplines, daily actions, daily habits, things like that, you've literally written a plan, a blueprint to take you to that goal again and again and again and again and again, if that's what you desire.
Yep. So make that list of daily actions, make your list of daily, and that's where your focus needs to be on a daily basis. Most frequently, pay attention to your list of actions, and then maybe in the morning and an evening, or maybe in an evening, actually contemplate kind of that big overarching goal and how you are progressing towards it. Spend some time.
I'm just going to add on to that one. So that's one thing that I've kind of set out, like, I think it was maybe February this year. It might have been just as we were going into lockdown. Like 5 things, like even if you only commit to like 5 minutes for each one, start with 5 things that you can do. And I think I did it actually Monday to Friday, rather than every single day. I did it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 5 minutes of each, because you don't want to overwhelm yourself too much. And then as you get used to that, you can start increasing the time and things like that. And also look at doing things that you enjoy doing. Obviously, we say a lot about you want to be enjoying the process. If you enjoy the process, you're far more likely to get to the destination and to achieve the goal. Find daily disciplines that obviously align with your goal, but also that you enjoy doing or that you find very rewarding. You're far more likely to get there.
The next thing that I want to talk about is the kind of content, and I don't know whether we might have touched on this a little bit, but the kind of content that goes into those list of daily actions. So I'm a big believer that don't worry or concern yourself with doing everything at 100%. Perfection is a pipe dream. It's a glorious thing that we would all love to have, but the actual possibility is very, very small. And the reality is that we don't need to be perfect. We don't have to be. And, there's plenty of quotes about, shoot for the stars and you might get to the moon, things like that. I still think you should give 100% of yourself to improving yourself, doing the things you need to do, but maybe consider making your targets just 1% better, just to start. One of the things that we will speak about a lot, we already have done a lot, but we will be speaking about it a lot more, is that you are pretty much a train. What we need to do is remove the little 1-inch blocks in front of your wheels and start your ticking and build some momentum. That's all we're looking to do. As soon as you start toppling, like you're toppling dominoes, that's all it is. As soon as you knock the first one over, the rest will follow. So concern yourself with being 1% better. Not 10%, 50%, 100%, just 1%. Do one thing one little bit better. So your daily actions or your list of actions, make them specific, but make them specifically achievable. And, if I was to come up with a couple of things right now, like maybe the first one is make your bed when you get up in the morning. That's success number 1. How early can you experience success first thing in the morning? Maybe that's it. Go make your bed. Spend 5 minutes of quiet time alone with, with a brew, a cup of tea, cup of coffee, just sat, think about your goals, make a list of, again, maybe 3 things that you're going to do today, or 3 things that you want to experience, 3 things that you want to have as a feeling. Spend some time doing that. Maybe you want to read, get smarter, be more knowledgeable. Don't read a book on your list, because you will know at the end of the day, you will not have read a full book by the end of the day. Read a page. Because if you pick the book up and read 1 page, you'll probably read another and another and another, and intrigue will just keep you going. And by the time you know it, you've read 10 pages, maybe even a full chapter. And it's far more achievable than going, right, I'm going to read a full book today. And you look at the book and you think, how big is it? 500 pages, fuck. Screwed that one up. Give yourself a chance to be successful. And again, like I said with the running, don't say, right, I'm going to go and run 5K. I'm going to run 10K. I'm going to run for an hour. Just say, I'm going to get out the door. I'm going to run for a minute and go from there.
Nothing to add to that. Nothing to add to that.
Take us through number 4. So far we've got think about your goals, write them down, list of actions, and we know what's going into that list of actions. What's number 4?
Number 4 is sending the list of goals and actions to a supportive friend/mentor.
And what role does that play? How does that help us?
Well, first of all, you're putting it out there into the universe, which will help with your RAS, which we previously addressed, the reticular activating system. Second of all, it's giving you kind of an accountability partner. That means a lot of people, just like you said earlier, primarily, maybe not primarily, but are driven, and I think probably more people nowadays, by not just themselves, but by contributing to others and helping others as well. So I think knowing that you're doing something that's going to help someone or impact someone else or something like that, and even especially with, I remember having, I can't remember specifically the conversation, but it was to do with millennials, and it was about like the way that they look, like caring more about the way that they look. Well, if you're one of those, which by the way, there's nothing wrong with, it's not the most useful trait to have, but there's nothing wrong with it.
How does a millennial look, Chris?
Doesn't make you a bad person, but what I'm saying is, if you care about that and that is a substantial factor in the way you perform and something that drives you, then, and by the way you look, I mean like other people's opinions of you and things like that, then telling someone else means they will automatically, well, you've given them permission to have an opinion of you. You're kind of opening the door to leave your, quotation marks, comfort zone. Because if you're worried about people judging you, now they've got the chance. Because if you shit out, they're going to know about it. Anything to add to that, Alex?
Yeah, I'm just writing. I was writing down a quote to remind myself of it so I didn't forget. But the accountability is huge. And I remember I've sat down with multiple people before where they've come out and they've told me, I don't care what anyone thinks of me. And I kind of sit there and go, what do you mean by that? I don't care what other people think of me. And I go, well, yeah, but what does that mean? Which people? And they're like, anyone. And I'm like, well, who is anyone? Point them out.
I'll tell you, one of the best stories ever. I won't name names. Well, I'll name Steve's name. I was at an education for Profit. Do you remember this? Do you know what I'm about to say?
Go on.
So there was a person, so Steve Butters, who is my mentor, and one of the most knowledgeable people on the planet. And he's going to hate me saying that, by the way. He was talking about, the different parts of the brain, prefrontal cortex and things like that. And he was talking about like the evolution of the brain and how part of the brain is deliberately formed to kind of focus / hone in on the way that people think and like communicate with others and where you kind of fit in a social hierarchy and stuff like that. So he said, these people who say like, I don't care what people think. It's just a facade. It's bullshit. So one of the trainers.
I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly where I was going to go with it. If I'd have said, I'm well in line with these people who don't give a shit what others think about them, that you just pissed all over my chips with that. But we're on the same page. It is a facade and it is BS. Go on.
One of the trainers shouted out, "Yeah, but I actually don't give a fuck about what people think about me." To which Steve responded very calmly and very eloquently, as only he could. He went, it still makes me laugh to this day. It's very, very smart. He said, "Now, if you didn't care what other people thought about you, why would you tell me that?" And he thought it was amazing, because he sat there and he had his hand up and said it, and he just went, "I retract my last statement." Because it's true. And you know what? You should care about what people think about you, because it does drive you forward. But there's a limit onto the things that are actually important, what they think about you, because people are going to have an opinion anyway, no matter what you do. But some opinions are actually, I can't remember who, I think it might be Bob Proctor, or it might be Jack Canfield, I don't know, who actually says that one of the best ingredients for success is getting criticism from people. Because if one person says it, I mean, you can argue against it. If two people say it, yeah, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. If a few people are saying it, I'm sorry, but it's probably true. And
do you know what? I've heard this explained this way. If one person tells you you're a tree, they're crazy. If two people tell you that you're a tree, they're both crazy. If multiple people are telling you you're a tree, guess what? You're a goddamn tree. That's literally how people see you.
Yeah. And it is. But like I was saying, people will have opinions anyway, but there's some that will matter and there's some that won't. Take the ones that are actually important and matter and use them.
Yeah, I think I've said before on maybe the podcast with Robert Grant, where, don't take criticism from people that you wouldn't take advice from. That's where you need to look at it. Going back to what you were saying about people not caring about what other people think and the psychological constructs, we are biologically designed to care about what other people think. That's how we survive as a species. That's how we kind of create younger people and bring them up. Like, we are built and designed to care about what other people think. So anyway, in my situation where I was going through this with someone, I wanted to understand exactly what they were saying. I wasn't trying to trip them up. I wasn't trying to catch them out. I wasn't necessarily just going to call bullshit on them. I mean, I thought it, but I wanted them to see the error of their ways. So I kind of just sat there and said, "Well, do you not care about what I think?" And they went, "Well, yeah, you're a coach, so okay, well, who do you love the most?" "Oh, my kid." "You care what your kid thinks about you?" There was silence. Stone dead silence. And I went, "And when you tell me that you don't care what anybody thinks about you, do you include yourself in that?" And that kind of, that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, where they kind of recognize that they do care. They do care what other people think. They do care what they think about themselves. They just haven't wanted, like we said before about, wallowing in your own shit. They haven't spent their time thinking about it. They haven't paid enough attention to it to recognize their own thoughts and feelings. And this is where self-awareness is huge. You have to be in tune with what you are thinking and feeling any given moment. If you are in tune with what you are thinking and feeling, you can start to change it. You can start to manipulate it and direct it in a different direction. But you have to take that moment, and it might just be a moment, just one moment, a small moment in time, a question, a thought-provoking quote, something that gets you worked up, maybe a motivational video on YouTube, and you think, why does that speak to me? Why does that relate to me? Why does that resonate? Why does it feel right? And you have to ask yourself the question, but you have to ask the question in a way that you are actually trying to find the answer. Because if you're simply asking the question for the sake of asking it, and you're not going to pay attention to what comes out of it as a result, it isn't going to go anywhere. It simply won't go anywhere. So you have to take that time to recognize it and pay attention to the thought. So yes, we all care what other people think. And like I said, compliance, and like you said, fitting in is very easy. It's the simple thing to do, and it's how we develop. It's how we grow. It's how we grow even faster. Standing out is the hard thing to do. And you can only stand out and push on, or it's a lot easier to stand out and push on and push things forwards if you've got a high certainty of self. So the only way we really get there is by being very self-aware and very in tune with who we are. Shall we move on to number 5? The last one on the list.
Yeah, so number 5 is basically just an extension of number 4, using the accountability partner. So the idea of number 5 is you actually have a review / weekly progress report with mentor / supportive friend. So this is kind of where you are tracking the daily habits and actions, and kind of going through the ins and outs of like what has been done, what hasn't been done, what's gone well, what's not gone well, what's kind of blocked certain pathways. So kind of this is like the role me and you play, Alex, where you have someone asking you the questions that you're not paying attention to by yourself. Like you have to find the answers via someone, an external source, asking you, okay, what went on here? How did this go? How did you find it? Because a lot of time we just do them like as a mundane task for the sake of doing them because we think, well, this is going to get me to my goal. We don't really think about it. So it's kind of that number 5 is obviously the review, is giving you a chance to actually review and assess. And also you might find that some of the habits and actions aren't working for you. You might want to change them. Like there's no point doing 52 weeks of habit and action that, yes, will give you some progress, but isn't as useful as doing something else that you could be doing instead of, or is taking you in the wrong direction. Because sometimes we have our own like screens on over our eyes. We will not see a bigger picture because it's harder when you are inside an emotional situation. It's easier for someone from the outside to see it. So sometimes we need that person on the outside to go, okay, what about this? How about this? What about the bigger picture here? Blah, blah, blah. So you can really see it from that external source.
Yep. It's a little bit, well, it's exactly like finding your way, isn't it? Like you might have a map and a compass. If you only ever look at it once at the start and you head off in that direction and you never look up to see where you are, you could find yourself very, very lost very, very quickly.
Yeah, so I think we spoke earlier, not on the podcast, just before the podcast started. One thing that I use, and I know Chris Warren uses as well, who's also very good at this sort of thing, is the GPS metaphor, which is kind of like the fastest way to get to where you want to go. If you imagine you going in a car, is you need to know exactly where you want to go. So be very, very specific, and exactly where you are right now. Like you plug those two details in, and the GPS will tell you where to go. And then I guess the weekly review is kind of your habits and actions are your single directions that are going to take you there. You can review and assess, have you taken a wrong turn? Are you going the fastest way? Are you going the most efficient way? Are you going the wrong way?
All crucial pieces of information we need. Very, very important parts of the puzzle. The final thing that I want to go through, and we're not going to get through everything we initially set out, but the final thing that I do want to go through for you today is the 3 C's of goal achievement. So these are the 3 crucial ingredients and 3 key components that you need to be aware of and have in balance for you to be able to succeed. So number 1 is competency. do you have the skill level necessary to perform the tasks at hand? For instance, do you have the ability to track your food, to measure it, to weigh it out, to portion it, to eat the right things, to eat the right foods, know that what's going into your body is indeed beneficial for you? Do you have the competency to go do you have the competency to go and exercise? If the answer to those questions is yes, and you've got a good chance, you've got the skill to be able to do that. If you don't, then this is where you need number 2, which is communication. You need to have the communication skills necessary to be able to find help with each of those areas. So if you need to speak to somebody else, get their help, get their assistance, their guidance, go and do it. Go and level up. The same kind of bracket of that in that communication is your self-talk, the way you speak to yourself, the way you communicate and have dialogue in your own head. What do you tell yourself? Are you seeing reds? Are you seeing positives? Are you seeing opportunities? Or are you cold? Are you seeing blue? Are you seeing negatives? Are you seeing how things are going to go wrong? Are you seeing failures and noticing them and going, oh, well, I can't do that? What's your self-dialogue like? Make sure that that is on point. And then the third one is consistency. Once you've started to implement your actions and your habits, mentioned, do it for a week. Good. Brilliant. Do it for 2 weeks. Fantastic. Keep it rolling. 3 weeks, 4 weeks, reassess, remeasure, maybe a little improvement. Brilliant. Go to 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, remeasure, reassess. Bigger improvement. Love it. Keep going. Keep reassessing, keep measuring. Be consistent over the course of 12 weeks, 26 weeks, 52. If you lose a pound a week, let's say weight loss is a goal, and I don't really like this analogy, but let's say you lost a pound a week. Most people think a pound a week or losing 1 pound is shit. But if you do that every single week of the year, you've lost 52 pounds in weight over the course of a year. If I said to you, would you like to lose 52 pounds tomorrow? You would be like, bang, bang my hand off. So put it into perspective. And again, that's what the review's for. That's why we need to ask the question of how are you doing? How are you progressing? Are you moving in the right direction? And if the answer is yes, we keep going. Any thoughts on that, Chris?
I was just going to say, if they do bite your hand off, it would not contribute towards 52 pounds lost. It would be a useless thing to do.
Figure of speech.
So that was my profound contribution to that wisdom that you just imparted there.
Thank you. So just to recap on those: competency, have you got a skill level? Communication is your self-talk and your ability to talk and dialogue with others at the level it needs to be. If not, go work on it. And then number 3, consistency. Can you do it week in, week out, day in, day out over the course of a year? And that's like greatness is found in the very mundane, very boring, very simple day-to-day things. That's it. That's where it is. That's the secret. That's literally it. It's the basic, boring, dull things done every single day. Any final thoughts you would like to wrap up with, Chris? Are you feeling inspired? Are you feeling inspired?
Not by you.
Oh. Cheers.
I'm joking, bro. I'm joking.
No, you're not. No, you're not. You don't have to try and make me feel better. It's fine.
Mate, I'm always inspired.
So, yeah, any final thoughts you'd like to wrap up with?
No, I don't think there's anything to add to that. I think know what you want, know where you are, know why you want it, take action. I think if you do those very, very simple, not easy things, you will start moving, and then reviews, redress, make sure you're moving in the right direction.
one of the I would just say this in our goal setting questionnaires, we do ask the question, who do you need to become in order to achieve your goals? And very often the person sits there and goes, well, I just need to be me, don't I? Like, well, you are you. You've got yourself right here, right now. So I would argue that that's probably not the case. You need to change, but you can do that in your head right now. Create a persona right now. Create your own superhero profile that is going to get you there. That is that person. Create that person that achieves all your goals, does all that stuff. Do that right now. Embody that person and embrace it, because, and I will leave you with this thought, and I've said this before, but I'll say it again and again and again and again until you're bored to tears of it. But people behave in accordance with who they believe they are. If you believe you are some drunk loser that is dumb, incapable, incompetent, inconsistent, what are you going to achieve? Whereas if you create a persona and that superhero character who you believe can do anything, you tell me what's going to stop you. Go and find the answer to that question. Create that persona. Go and do that. That is my final thought.
I have a final thought to add to your final thought, which is, and I think this is key. A lot of people worry about like finding the correct thing to sort of work towards, finding a specific thing. And I think it's more useful to focus on creating, which was the word that you just used then. Create it. Think about what you think you want. Start moving towards that, and then the finding will happen naturally. If you just try and find and you don't know what you're actually looking for, inevitably you're obviously not going to find it. Create it. Don't find it, create it, and then the finding will happen naturally.
I love that. Right. So they are the final thought-provoking of what I hope has actually been a very thought-provoking, somewhat inspiring, interesting first podcast to 2021. So I think we did, what did we do? We did about 10 podcast episodes in our first month. We don't intend on slowing down by any means. So we will keep on producing. You keep on listening, we'll keep on producing. We'll keep throwing this kind of stuff your way. But please, please, please let us know what positives have come out of this episode for you, what actions you're setting, what changes you want to make, what your targets and goals are for this next 12 months, what you want to achieve. Is there any way that we can possibly help you get there? Because, I mean, well, we know we can help you, but we aren't going to help you until we know about you and you get in touch, and then we can sort about getting a plan together for you. But we can definitely do that. So go and smash it. That's all there is to it now. We've given you the ingredients, we've given you the recipe, we've given you the mixing bowl, the spatula. You've got your can of petrol and your lighter. Go and have a play. Go and have a right time. I think that's all there is to it. So hopefully you've enjoyed episode number 11 with me and Chris. We will be back again soon with another episode of the Lenko Show. So until then, it's goodbye from Chris.
Peace out.
And it's goodbye from me. And that means Lenko out.